In a small village nestled amidst towering hills, lived the Sharma familiar vibrant joint family of 12. The village, called Dupgan, was surrounded by dense forests and tranquil rivers, a place where life moved slowly, but with purpose. The Sharmas were well known in the village for their unity and their enduring family traditions, built over generations. Headed by the eldest, Dadaji, the patriarch who had seen more than 80 summers, the family was a reflection of India's rich culture of togetherness. His wife, Dadiji, was as sharp as she was kind, with a spirit of youth that never seemed to fade. They had 3 sons, Sarun, Rayesh, and Shurshij, with a wife and children of their own. Arn's son, Ayman, was the eldest of the grandchildren, and the other Srinu, Vivek, Naina, and Mira looked up to him for guidance and ideas, as he was the planner and dreamer in the group. Their household bustled with laughter, squabbles, and shared meals. The village knew the Sharma family for their love of adventure. Every summer, they embarked on a journey, exploring new places and creating memories that lasted a lifetime. But this summer was special. Dadaji had hinted at a once-in-a-lifetime adventure, and the family had been abuzz with excitement. Chapter 1. The Whisper of Adventurite was one warm summer morning when Dadaji gathered everyone around the courtyard. His voice, though aged, carried excitement. "I've heard stories about a hidden lake beyond the hills, a lake untouched by time," Dadaji began, his eyes twinkling with excitement. "My grandfather told me about it when I was a boy, and I think it's time we discover it together. I want all of us to go on this adventure and find that hidden lake." Everyone looked at him in awe. The hills he spoke of were dense and far beyond the village boundaries, a place no one had ventured in recent times. The forest was known to be wild, and the journey promised to be long and challenging. "Dad, are you sure?" Aro asked with a hint of concern. "It's a rough path, and you're not as young as you once were." Dadaji smiled and patted Aro on the back. "Don't you worry about me, son. It's not just about reaching the lake, it's about the journey, the experience, and doing it together as a family." Rayesh and Suresh exchanged excited glances. The spirit of adventure had awakened within them too. Soon, the entire family was caught up in planning the expedition, gathering supplies, packing food, and making sure everyone was ready for the big day. The youngest members of the family were thrilled. Ayman, being the eldest of the grandchildren, took charge of organizing the group. "We'll need to split the tasks," he said, speaking to his cousins. "Mira and Naina, you can handle the food supplies. Vivek and I will take care of the camping gear, and Reena can map out our route." Mira, the youngest at 10, was excited to be a part of the planning. "This is going to be the best adventure ever," she exclaimed, her eyes gleaming with joy. Chapter 2. Into the Wilds. Morning of the journey arrived. The family gathered at the edge of the village, all dressed in sturdy clothes, with backpacks filled to the brim with supplies. Dadaji led the way with his walking stick, followed closely by Dadiji, who had packed extra snacks for the grandchildren. The path ahead was rugged, filled with rocks and brambles. The forest was dense, and soon, the village behind them disappeared into the mist. Birds chirped in the distance, and the sound of flowing water echoed through the trees. The air was fresh and filled with the scent of pine and earth. For hours, they trekked through the woods, following a trail that was barely visible. Along the way, they encountered small streams, vibrant flowers, and even a few animals, a family of deer, a couple of squirrels, and a peacock that spread its feathers in a grand display. The youngest, Mira, held onto Vivek's hand tightly as they crossed a narrow stream. "Do you think we'll find the lake?" she asked, her voice filled with wonder. "I know we will," Vivek said confidently. At lunchtime, the family gathered around a clearing, unpacking sandwiches and fruit. Dadaji and Dadaji sat on a large rock, watching as the grandchildren played around, skipping stones and chasing butterflies. These moments are what make life beautiful, Dadaji said quietly to Dadaji. Yes, she replied, and I'm glad we're experiencing them together. Chapter 3 Challenges along the wave journey wasn't without its challenges. As they climbed higher into the hills, the path became steeper and more treacherous. At one point, they reached a narrow ridge with a sharp drop on one side. Eamon, who was leading the way, stopped and looked back at the group. We need to be careful here, he warned. One wrong step, and we could fall. The family crossed slowly, one by one, each helping the other. Dadaji insisted on walking on his own, though Suresh stayed close, just in case. It was a tense moment, but together, they made it safely across. Just as they thought the worst was behind them, a sudden downpour drenched the family. They scrambled to find shelter under a large tree, but they were all soaked through. This is what makes an adventure memorable, Rayesh laughed, shaking the water from his hair. Memorable indeed, Reena muttered, pulling her rain-soaked jacket tighter around her. I just hope we find this lake soon, despite the rain and the fatigue setting in. The family pressed on. Their spirits, though dampened for a moment, rose again as they sang songs and shared stories to pass the time. Chapter 4 The Hidden Lake. After what seemed like days of trekking, though it had only been a long, challenging afternoon, the family reached a high ridge. Beyond the ridge, there was a valley, and in the middle of the valley, surrounded by trees and bathed in golden sunlight, was the hidden lake. There it is! Dadaji shouted with glee, his voice filled with the excitement of a child. We found it. The family stood in awe, staring at the serene beauty of the lake. The water was crystal clear, reflecting the sky above like a giant mirror. Birds flew overhead, and the sound of the wind through the trees was like music. We did it, Eamon said, a broad smile on his face. We really did it. The family made their way down to the lake and set up camp by the water's edge. That night, under a blanket of stars, they sat around a campfire, sharing stories and laughter. It was a night none of them would ever forget, a night filled with the magic of nature and the warmth of family. As the fire crackled and the stars shimmered above, Dadaji looked around at his family. This, he said, his voice filled with emotion, is what life is all about. Not just the destination, but the journey and the people you share it with. Chapter 5 The return's journey back to the village was easier, though they were all reluctant to leave the hidden lake behind. It had been a place of magic, a symbol of the adventure they had undertaken as a family. But more than that, it was a reminder of the bond they shared and that could weather any storm, any challenge, as long as they were together. When they returned to Dupgan, they were greeted by their neighbors with awe and admiration. The story of the Sharma family's adventure quickly spread through the village, becoming a tale that would be told for generations. And as life returned to its usual pace, the family knew that this adventure had changed them. They had learned that there was nothing they couldn't achieve as long as they worked together, supported one another, and kept their spirits high. For years to come, the lake beyond the hills would remain a symbol of the power of family, of the joy that comes from shared experiences, and of the belief that, with courage and love, any horizon could be reached.